let's look back at the World Grand Prix. Luke Humphries becoming a major champion. He's up to a career high of world number 4 now as well. But will the floodgates open now for him, do you think? Is there going to be more silverware coming his way in the coming months?
We had a similar question 11 months ago about Michael Smith. Obviously, very different situation in that Smith had already played in 8 major finals and lost them all. Luke Humphries had only made the one to date before this past weekend in Leicester. But, he'd already emerged as unquestionably the best player who had yet to win a major. By the back end of last year, when he had won those 4 Euro Tour events early in the year, then started to make deep runs finally in majors, because he had not even made any deep runs since that final at the UK Open in 2021. But he made a quarterfinals at the European Championships, made a semifinal in Wolverhampton at the Grand Slam, then made another semifinal the following week at the Players' Championship Finals in Minehead, and he entered the World Championships. Most people thought in the Premier League, as long as he didn't go out early, and he went out relatively early at the World Championships, then laid a dud in the World Series events, laid a dud in the Masters, and he found himself on the outside looking in, but then made another deep run at the World Match Play earlier this year. So he had been getting to those later stages, but he hadn't made those 8 finals, but he had won so many other events. I mentioned those 4 Euro Tours last year, added another this year to go along with 5 other finals. He's been to the finals of half of the Euro Tour events this year. He's been to the finals of 2/3 of the Euro Tour events that he entered this year, that he played in this year. 3/5 of them, not 2/3. I thought he'd skipped 3. He skipped only 2. But still, 60% of the ones he entered, he's made the final of. He's won 2 additional Players' Championship events, like he won 2 last year. He's been one of the form players in the world, and off the television stage, the form player alongside Dave Chisnall, who's won 3 Euro Tours this year to go along with the last Euro Tour event of last year. So he was unquestionably the best player, at least in my mind, who would not win a major. And overall CV was up there among active players, behind only maybe Dave Chisnall and Mervyn King. Although Mervyn King, of course, had won a World Masters over in the BDO, but since switching to the PDC, hadn't won a PDC major. He was behind maybe just those players among active players for their overall CV, because of just how much he had done on the Euro Tour in the past 24 months. But he hadn't won that major yet. And we had this question about Michael Smith. Does winning that major mean the floodgates were going to open? And I stuck with my tip that should have won tip of the year last year, that he would still win a second, and that would be the World Championship, because I said he'd win 2 last year. But I didn't think it was something that was necessary for his progression, because he was there. He was getting to the line. And yes, he didn't have it in that final session of the UK Open against Danny Noppert. He just ran out of steam. Yes, he got outplayed by Ross Smith, who came out firing early in that match at the European Championships. And even though he trailed off late on, by that point, he had already psychologically beaten Michael Smith. But it was going to come. It just happened to take longer than we thought it would. And once he crossed the line, we knew he would again, not because he won that first major, but because he was good enough, and he would be in that position again, regardless of whether he had won the Grand Slam. I think it's the same as Luke Humphries. That said, I don't want to take anything away from how big this is, because even though he didn't need to win this to open the floodgates had already opened on the Euro Tour, and they were going to turn over into the majors, onto the television stage at some point or another. But to do it in that fashion, to do it really taking the first set off and then barely giving Gerwyn Price a sniff in the next 6 sets, was just fantastic. It was one of the best performances I've seen in some time. The stats might not back it up. It was still, in the end, it was definitely a good performance, but it wasn't at those same levels that we'd saw even from, Michael Smith earlier in the tournament or some other players. But still 93 average in the end, especially when he was averaging under 70 after the first set, and kept it rising and never giving Gerwyn Price really any chance. He had a dart here, a dart there at the back end of combinations. He had a chance if he took out a combo finish to win that 7th set and get us to an 8th set. But then he steps up, bang in the middle of the treble 19, bang in the middle of the treble 19, and okay, it wasn't in the middle of the double 12, but who's going to fault him? It still was in, and he was a major champion. It was just an absolutely phenomenal performance from Luke Humphries. He will win another major. It very well could be the next event, but I don't think that him winning this is going to make that much of a difference in him crossing the line again. That said, he was putting a lot of pressure on himself. You could see it. You could see every time he had a poor visit, every time he had even a good visit instead of a great one, he was angry with himself. Even when Gerwyn Price was back on 360. And maybe some of that's respect for Gerwyn Price, because we know that if anyone can check out 360 in 6 darts, it's Gerwyn Price, even though it's mathematically impossible. But he was still giving himself too much, or showing too much frustration with himself. And maybe now that he's won a major, that will go away, and that will make him play freer. And if he's playing freer, that's only going to be scarier. But did he need to win this in order to open the floodgates? No. So I'm saying no, not because he's not going to win another, not because he's not going to win a boatload more, but because the floodgates were already opened. This was just the first time he crashed through with the title.
Yeah, it's hard to argue against that. And just looking at the last 24 months, we've had 20 PDC major singles events, and Luke Humphries becomes the 12th different winner, which just goes to show the openness of this current era that we've got at the top level of the PDC. And a lot of those players that we've seen win those major events, I think Luke is the 7th new first-time winner. And you mentioned Michael Smith there. He's the only one of those 7 players. Okay, Luke's not had a chance to play in another one yet, but to have won another major title since then. So we've had a lot of players win that first major title and not able to back it up so far. And I guess there's 2 parts to that, isn't there? And one is because there are so many different winners at the moment at the top level, it's difficult to win these events, let alone winning one of them to go on and win a few of them when you've got so many different players that are pushing you and going up against you in these major events. And the second part, just with regards to the players themselves, is that you add your name to that roll of honour. Some players, they do that and it might change their psyche a little bit, their mindset. They might think, wow, I've won this event. There's pressure now to go and prove that it's not a one-off and to do it again. And you look at the rest of the field, they'll be thinking there's a target on that player's back now. They're a major champion. I want to go and claim their scalp and beat them. And I think in Luke Humphries' case, you mentioned it there about how he's been able to win a lot of events already without this major title. And you go back to the development tour 6-7 years ago when he started winning on that, 11 titles, and then the World Youth to cap it off. And then going into the senior events, 2022, 4 titles on the Euro Tour, 2 Players' Championships, and even before the week just gone, 2023, he's already got another Euro Tour, 2 Players' Championships. So the last couple of years, we've seen him win multiple titles each season, which is the mark of a very good player in the PDC. And he has been touted for a long time as one of those next players in that list to win a major title. And I guess really you look at Luke Humphries and he has followed that blueprint of win a Players' Championship, win a Euro Tour, and then win a major. And it's not always the case with these players. Some will skip those first 2, like Andrew Gilding, and win a major title, whereas Luke, he has gone down that route of winning the smaller events, working his way up. And you go back 10-15 years and players' stage time in the PDC, it was 4, 5, 6 events on TV a year. There wasn't a Euro Tour, the World Series. So the jump from Players' Championship floor events straight to the majors is quite a big jump. Whereas now we've got the Euro Tour, the World Series. We've seen Luke involved in that this year. I think he has been able to really develop and progress at a much quicker rate. And I think this title, it was coming. There were some scary moments on the way, in particular that quarterfinal with Peter Wright, surviving those 3-match darts to lose it 3-1, but what a comeback to win that game from 2-0 down 3-2. And from there on, apart from losing that first set to Gerwyn Price, and with that sub 70 average, he looked like a player that was heading towards that major title, beat Joe Cullen 4-0 in the semis, and then come back from 1-0 down to beat Price 5-2, and he was a deserved winner. And he's talking about the goal now is to be world number 1, world champion. And for me, I think there's no reason why he can't do that. He's number 4 now, 3 more spots to climb. And I think this title is just going to keep building that confidence that he's already got. I think he is a potential winner at Ali Pali in 2 or 3 months' time. And if he does that, he could well be top of the rankings as well.